David works at the individual, household, and neighborhood congregational, city, county, region, state, nation, and global scales. At the individual and household level, having lost their home in the 4 Mile wildfire of 2010, he is somewhat of a climate refugee. Starting in 2015, David and his partner have reduced their carbon footprints from 17 metric tons of greenhouse gas emission a year to 2. The Earth's carrying capacity is 3 metric tons per person per year. So a personal reduction from 100 pounds a day to 12 pounds a day. Working with a modest 60-year-old home, this is an 87% reduction in greenhouse gases. Welcome, David.
Hey, thanks for having me, and thank everyone for hanging out. It's been a long 2 days, but man, it's been filled.
Yeah,
Woo!
it's mind-blowing for me. These things always transform me. Like, it's such a deep, immersive dive. At the other side, I have like a whole new feeling about things. It works as a retreat.
But we're gonna launch now.
Off we go.
Whoops, here we go. So, our intentions in our work, we wanted to sever our home's fossil fuel umbilical cord. We wanted to see how far we could go with a carbon neutral lifestyle. We didn't know what we couldn't do. We wanted to do this work on an existing home. There are 180, I don't know how many, there's a lot of existing homes. We wanted to demonstrate we could create abundance while honoring planetary limitations. And we actually wanted to do what we were going to be asking people to undertake. And then we were going to keep iterating and repeating. So what use is a house if you haven't got a tolerable planet to put it on? So we do need these greenhouse gases, or our Earth would resemble a round ice cube. But we're dancing this delicate dance of too much and too little, and we're straying into too much. And that 17-ton strapped on your back is it's causing a little havoc. So as mentioned, the baseline is 7 tons per person per year, and we're operating way above that. What is a metric ton? It pretty much looks like the size of a modest single family dwelling. The interesting thing is the average usage is all over the map, from 0.1 ton in Ethiopia to 36 in Qatar. And we again are at around 17. So if we do the math, if you take 17 of those megatons and bring it down to a per person level, it turns out we're generating about 100 pounds per day. So I don't know how many of you are backpackers, but 50 pounds is a lot, and we're doubling that. So what is our answer? Our answer is to try to tread more lightly. And the typical mitigations for lowering our carbon footprint are really, really good, but they're really, really not going to get us where we need to go in order to bequeath our children and their children a livable planet. So how do we get there? Well, the first thing we do is we learn what our current footprint is. There are many, many footprint calculators out there. I tried to find one that worked in metric ton equivalents, and there's a link there, but there are several, including EPA. And the game here is we wish to create abundance while honoring our Earth's limitations, while staying within the Paris Accords aspiration to remain beneath 1.5 degrees. So to get there, we have this thing called part per million concentration of CO2. And we're currently at 400. And if you think about it, 400 part per million is like 40 cents in $1,000. Not much. So it turns out that small things have large effects. Here we are, we have been around for 6 million years, perhaps conservatively 300,000 years we've been Homo sapiens. And the Earth has been around for 4.5 billion years, and look at the havoc we have been able to run in the short time we've been on this Earth. So a little bit about my background. My late father-in-law was Charles David Keeling, who was the recorder of concentrations of CO2 in the atmosphere. His son, my wife's brother, has taken over. As a result of the rising concentration of CO2, scientists predicted all sorts of havoc. I have to confess that I have developed a condition, and the condition is called OCD, obsessive carbon disorder. So motivation started out with my father-in-law, but in 2010, there was a wildfire in a canyon outside of Boulder, Colorado, where we were living. That's our house. This is our house the day after a wildfire swept through and destroyed everything. 3 years later, we had a stalled weather front dump a year's rain in 3 days. This is the church the day before the flood, and this is the church the day after. That was a road that raging creek is running down. So we decided, we think what science is telling us is true. Maybe we should do something. Maybe if we were to do something, it would be important to support other people doing it. So we launched off. We bought a replacement home that was built in 1954, a modest 1,000 square foot ranch. This is the home before we started the work. This is the home after the work was done. The work involved getting an energy audit, get a roadmap, figure out where we were. Where we were required, we hadn't read the pocketbook on deep energy retrofits, so we went ahead and upgraded to 200 amp service. We were lucky to find a consultant that has done this work from the ground up and was willing to help guide us through. With the audit, we launched into insulation and sealing, SEALING, and we made use of modern technology to figure out where our losses happen to be. We insulated the attic, the wall, the exterior walls, and the crawl space. One thing that has really been our go-to cooling here in Boulder, Colorado, where it cools down at night, is a self-insulating whole house fan. And we were lucky our 25-year-old furnace was teetering on end of life. So one of the first things we did was replaced out a inefficient gas furnace with air source heat pumps. And what we did was because we had replacing an air furnace, we used the embodied energy of the duct system on the main part of the house, but in a converted garage, which was underserved, we ended up installing a mini split. The mini split is interesting because it's the conversion was to become my wife's piano studio, and she is very orally sensitive, and she was really concerned that this would be a noisy distraction, and it is so whisper soft that she loves it. She just loves this thing. And the beauty, of course, of your heat pump is it does both heating and cooling, which she's really happy about as well. We also, got so far and decided, well, this is a 1960-year-old home. The windows really aren't working so well, and what would it cost to replace them? And we found a contractor that was really willing to work with us, and he convinced us we could afford triple pane, low E windows as a replacement for our single pane wood construction. The final thing that we faced was the hot water. So when we bought the home, it had pretty much gone electric, resistive electric, except for the furnace and the hot water. And so we're a modest little home, so we don't have room for adding a room just to service the air exchange of a air source heat pump water heater integrated. So we found a solution which allowed us to put the hot water storage into the footprint of the previous water heater with an external CO2 refrigerant Sandin compressor, which was just the cat's meow. So in January of 2017, having started in October 2015, we were able to call our investor-owned utility and have them remove the gas line altogether from the property. And of course, there was a happy dance in the end zone. So at this point, there's something called the HERS index, which was one of our ways of measuring the progress we were making. Of note, the Architecture 2030 and Living Building Challenges are down there around 0, and Passive House is around 20. And as a result of the energy efficiency work, we had actually gone from 193, which is twice as leaky as a new home, new construction built to code. And we had gotten down to 66, and we were setting our sights on 0. So the fossil fuel-free zone includes things like our barbecue. So we have a barbecue that creates biochar. And our improvement, our air leakages pretty much halved, and actually got us into the area where a 60-year-old home actually would need to consider recovery ventilation. And in the process, we started looking at all the ways we could measure our energy usage, being OCD. And we've done Sense, and we've done eGauge, and we've done Emporia, and we've done Kilowatt. And we're constantly trying, what is measured improves, and we're trying to improve all the time. So again, with a tighter envelope, we run into this stale air situation. One of the things that we did know was that after 3 years, we had a 0 carbon monoxide indoor air level. But about a year ago, we decided, we're going to start taking a better look at our indoor air quality. And we were going to go ahead, we had gone ahead and almost had to create radon mitigation just because the house was so tight. And bit the bullet and got an ERV. Our HVAC gurus said, this is where you need to go, and that's where we went. So we're down at 66 HERS, and now we're got our sights set on 0. Let's decarbonize, decentralize, and democratize. So it's all about energy from here on in. So what had happened was we had switched to fully electrified, but in order to get a permit in Colorado, what happens is you are granted 120% of your previous year's usage, and we had electrified, so we had to wait a year in order to get our permit. And in that year, we did some design. So a little bit about what we figured out. A square yard of earth, well, we figured out that how much light is actually hitting our roof, how much of that we actually can convert to energy, how much energy the house really needs, and do we have enough roof to do it? So,
and just to be attentive, so it's a few minutes left. I apologize, I know you started it kind of late there, but just to be aware.
Okay. So we decided let's do a nanogrid, which basically has power, storage, and behind the meter usage. That's what we're doing. We have we're drawing, we have a battery system, we're drawing battery at night, we're producing energy during the day. Here's the battery profile. So about midnight it starts drawing, and then morning dawn comes and we start filling back up. We're living in a very unhospitable to solar neighborhood, big 60-year-old trees. The predictions for our site beginning was 1.42 kilowatts. Ridiculous. And we found a solar installer who was willing to work with us. We ended up doing the batteries in the crawl space. Now, these are 4 foot tall, And the whole thing is, we were breaking ground here in Boulder because they really wanted us to have enough space if something happened to get somebody out on a stretcher, et cetera, et cetera. Our usage is as predicted. We draw 4 months of the year, and we have a surplus the other 8. We again reduced our footprint. Our final HERS ended up at -50. The timeline, we started in October of 2015. All of this kind of follows the slides up till now. And by 2019, we were at, again, -50. Next steps, you want to also think about localized food. You want to think about the equity involved in caring for the unborn who fit all of the criteria for a marginalized population. And we don't have time for this. So that's it, man.
Woo! Thank you for your leadership, David. So do you feel like you're helping change your community? I know you work at every single level. How's it going?
It is even Boulder. Boulder is a affluent, intelligent, earth-hugging community, and it's like pushing a rock up the hill. And we just keep pushing, and we just keep finding different ways to push it. And we're not going to stop. And that's my story. And if you don't like it, I do have others.
An incredible part of your story is the family tradition. I mean, it's like
oh yeah,
sacred flame. The people.
Yeah, now we're starting to work on the family home in San Diego. So, yeah,
Well,
that work is starting.
And David, there's people who want to chat with you over in the chat about your data collection devices. It's fascinating that you've done so many. You know that you're unusually, like experienced with these data collection devices. So if you don't mind chatting with people over on the side there.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll take a look.
Well done, David. That's beautiful. You are an inspiration.